Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular council meeting for July 23rd, 2024. I would like to remind the members of the public in the gallery during a council meeting to adhere to the conduct set forth in the council procedural bylaw and displayed near the entrance of council chambers. I'll call the regular council meeting to order at 7 o'clock, starting with the land acknowledgement. Blackfalds Town Council acknowledges that we are on Treaty 6 territory, a traditional meeting ground, gathering place and traveling route to the Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, Dene, and Nakota Sioux. We acknowledge all the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries. Has council had a chance to review the agenda for tonight's meeting? Any additions or deletions to the regular agenda from either council or administration? Thank you. Does any member of council wish to exempt an item from the proposed consent agenda before the adoption of the regular agenda? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to adopt the regular agenda for July 23rd as presented. Councillor Schwab.
I'll move to adopt the regular agenda as presented.
Thank you. All in favor? And I'll ask for a motion to adopt the consent agenda for July 23rd as presented. Deputy Mayor Sands.
I'll move to accept the consent agenda for July 23rd, 2024 as presented.
Thank you. All in favor? That is unanimous. We have no delegation this evening. We have no public hearings. Moving on to business items. Item 6.1, request for decision for bylaw 1306.24 being the municipal development plan, map 2 amendments.
Members of council. The town's municipal development plan is the key statutory plan that communicates long-term desired land uses for the town at a very, very high level. It's planning at the 35,000 level. The land use bylaw is the key implementation tool for direction within the municipal development plan, and any amendments to the land use bylaw need to be consistent with the municipal development plan. And that ensures that the long-term vision comes into fruition. This bylaw before you, this 1306.24 to amend map 2 of the municipal development plan is directly related to a subsequent application that you'll hear afterwards to redistrict the parcel that we're discussing to a DC district intended for residential uses. When planning assesses the merits of a redistricting application, the policies of the municipal development plan must be adhered to. There's 2 policies that speak to consistency within the plan, and one specifically directing us to map 2 to show future land uses. Our current map 2 does show the subject parcel, which is 4409 South Street beside our Protective Services building, for future industrial. We recognize that this plan was adopted almost 15 years ago. There's been significant changes. And because of that, and the fact that the nature of industrial has changed, and they look for more larger parcels. This parcel doesn't really fit that. The current zoning of the parcel is commercial, and we've been actively trying to sell that parcel for a number of years without really any success. So this is related to a land sale that administration is currently working with a developer on, and they wanted to do residential. So when we looked at this site and kind of assessed it for residential, even though it's identified for industrial in the municipal development plan, maybe 15 years ago that made sense. Now it makes sense to have it as a residential parcel. So that's why administration is supportive of this amendment before you. The reason why it works for residential, it's because it's really close to a lot of recreation facilities, schools, the dog park, highway access. It's really quite good for residential. So one of the tasks from the planning department is to ensure that any amendments the land is suitable. And we know that it's generally suitable. And we use that word generally suitable because we know that there's a couple more environmental studies that need to be done to really confirm that residential is suitable. So with that said, we have agreed to start taking this through the amendment process. However, third reading of both this bylaw and the subsequent one I'll speak to next, we will not be bringing that forward until those environmental studies are complete and that we are satisfied that this is going to be good good for residential. The potential purchaser is well aware of this and is okay with that. Back to my report here. With that said, the administrative recommendation before council this evening is that council give first reading to bylaw 130624 to amend 4409 South Street on map 2 of the municipal development plan to residential. And the second motion is that a public hearing date be set for August 27th, 2024 at 7 p.m. in council chambers. Any questions?
No questions. No. I would agree that land is well suited for, I think it's more agreeable when we're talking about high density. We were talking about low density or medium density. That may not be the case, but in this case, I would fully agree that the proposed use is ideal for that and well needed in our community. So well supported. Seeing no questions, we do have 2 motions to consider. Deputy Mayor Sands.
If nobody else has anything, I'm prepared to move that council give first reading to bylaw 1306.24 to amend 4409 South Street on map 2 of the municipal development plan to residential as presented.
Thank you. Any debate or discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Councillor Coulter.
I move that a public hearing dated to be set on August 27th, 2024 at 7 p.m. in council chambers.
Thank you. Debate or discussion? Call the question. All in favor? That is also unanimous. Thank you. Moving on to 6.2, request for decision on bylaw 1307.24, the 4409 South Street redistricting, first reading.
Thank you, Mayor Hoover. So this bylaw proposes to bring in a new direct control district number 5, that has been specifically created for 4409 South Street, and also to redistrict the property to that DC5 district from the current highway commercial district. The proposed DC5 district is intended to accommodate several apartment-style buildings and associated parking on site with a potential future daycare and amenity building. The proposed redistricting has come about through the land sale agreement specific to 4409 South Street and will be in line with the updates to the municipal development plan that are also currently in the formal adoption process. Administration is supportive of the proposed redistricting for these apartment style buildings, daycare and amenity, as the proposed development meets the following town policies and focus areas. The Town of Blackfalds midterm strategic plan, hereinafter referred to as a strategic plan, identifies providing a diverse range of housing to meet the needs of residents as one of its top 6 priorities. The strategic plan also identifies promoting options for housing as one of the areas of focus under strategic priority number 1, community life. I just spoke to policy 3.12 of the municipal development plan and this application generally meeting that requirement. Of course, again, those environmental studies will be required and third reading will be held off on this one as well until we have those studies that it's confirmed that it's suitable for residential. And then we can say that it is fully in compliant with that. Policy 5.1 of the MDP directs residential land uses to those identified in map 2 of the MDP. Because that is currently in the redistricting process, I think we can say it's generally in conformance at this time. And policy 5.2 of the MDP speaks to the town providing a range of housing types. And the town currently doesn't have a lot of apartment style units available for existing and new residents. I'll just go through some of the highlights of the amending bylaw, because there's a couple of new standards that are being proposed under this DC5 district, which is why they've decided to go with a direct control as opposed to a conventional district. It is specific to 4409, so this DC5 district wouldn't be applied to any other parcel within here. And it lists apartment as a permitted use and very limited discretionary uses such as major daycare and home-based business 1. We're really trying to put home-based business 1 as uses in as many districts as possible because it doesn't have a lot of impact on residential, and thought that even apartments, home-based business 1 is an office in the home, so it wouldn't be impacting the neighbors at all in our opinion. The DC5 district is also proposed proposing a little bit different parking standards than what our land use bylaw currently provides. They are looking at the same amount of parking for one-bedroom units, and instead of our required 2 stalls for a 2-bedroom unit, they're proposing 1.5 parking stalls for each 2-bedroom unit. And they're proposing the same number of parking stalls required for a 3-bedroom unit as currently required in our land use bylaw, and the same amount of guest parking as well. The parking sizes are also slightly different than what our land use bylaw requires. So these minimum parking stall sizes are consistent with the City of Red Deer's standard. It's slightly smaller than the City of Lacombe requirements and slightly larger than the town of Sylvan Lake. This particular developer has built this style development in all 3 of those communities and is very confident that the parking that they're proposing under the DC5 district will work for their development. The land use bylaw does state specific outlines of when we can require it or when we can allow for a DC5 district, and it is to be used for providing for developments that aren't accommodated in another district. Now, although apartment it is the change of parking that they want that certainty for. So instead of leaving that to a variance at a subsequent date, they want that certainty through this DC5 district. Also of note is the entity that is empowered with making decisions on this on the development permits that we expect. And this DC5 district does list council as the development authority. So when these apartments come by, we will come forward with a development permit application for council to make that decision, which will be a little different, but those who have sat on MPC, you're well versed in that. And we have attached the overall site plan that they're expecting, and they're proposing to move forward with just one building at this time. Amendment 2.3 in your bylaw is to actually, redistrict the parcel to DC5 from the existing highway commercial. And with respect to pre-council consultation, we actually didn't do it this time around. And our reasoning for that is it's a fairly isolated parcel and it's not within an existing residential fabric. Most of the surrounding lands are town-owned. Regardless, adjacent landowners will be given an opportunity to provide comments at the public hearing. The administrative recommendation before you is that council give first reading to bylaw 1307-24 to redistrict 4409 South Street to direct control district number 5, and that a public hearing date be set for August 27th, 2024 at 7 p.m. in council chambers. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? I do have one question. So I think you touched on it. So I understand that the developer in this case is looking for some standards, proposed standards in here, just to be simple and consistent. Did I understand correctly that these would have been within the variances that that development could have approved, or would they have had to come to the council for approval?
It's really hard to say because they are going to be doing this in different phases. So our development officers can vary our parking standards up to 17%. But if they wanted to have lesser parking in one phase and more in the other, that one phase may have had to be kicked to the Municipal Planning Commission.
Okay, so just wanted to get a sense whether or not this would have, even if we wouldn't have included these standards within this bylaw, if they would have been approvable essentially through planning and development.
Yeah, and we do issue variances on parking stall sizes sometimes and parking stall numbers. Just with this, we don't know what each application would look like, so it's difficult to say whether that would be a development officer decision or it would have to be kicked to the MPC.
Okay, thank you. And the reason I asked that is just because I just want to try and understand how this could potentially impact, the other developments within our land use bylaw and whether or not that would make it more challenging for development officers. If this is, I'm comfortable knowing that, this is within the variances that would likely have been approvable by a development officer.
And just to remind council that planning decisions aren't set in precedence. So just because we allow it on this site does not legally require us to do that on another site. We just need to justify if there is a difference. And this one, I feel like we do. We know that the developer has this exact product in the other municipalities, went with these exact parking standards, and they built them. Some of them have been up for a number of years and it's working for them.
Thank you. And then just aside from this, I mean, as you had pointed out, the the MSP is quite outdated, or MDP is quite outdated, and we're making a change to accommodate this particular development. Was it something with the MDP, something that was coming up for review? I know that it's a significant amount of work. The land use bylaw was a significant amount of work, and we talked about this would be something that would likely come back in the future to adjust, and we're just doing partially.
Yeah, and so you're correct. The amendment that was previously discussed is specific to the site. We've definitely been talking about the need to update the municipal development plan. It's figuring out staff resources, funding, that sort of stuff, how exactly we're going to execute it. It's a very big job.
Well, I agree with you, but I do think that, if given the speed that some of these developments are coming at the town, it's almost better to look at it one piece at a time. We make a major change that ultimately isn't going to fit, something that comes to us in a couple of years. Maybe that's not worth spending the resources on it. So,
and that's something that can absolutely be done. We can make amendments to this as, it'll just be subject to the formal adoption process.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Schwab.
Through the chair to manager Tackle again, it's a parking question. So I'm assuming they're not planning underground parking, kind of like the other apartment building is, because I noticed they don't have parking issues. I'm concerned if there's too many vehicles over there, would they be parking on South Street? Would they be parking at the camping ground, or would they be parking on the grass of the undeveloped land? And how
this application will not have underground parking. That has never been in part of the discussions. I believe South Street is no-go zone for parking, so they would be limited on that. We can't control if people do go to off-site. Unfortunately, if they're parking on grass, then that does become an enforcement matter. But knowing that the developer is coming forward with this district crafted specifically for the development that they have had in other municipalities with this success, I think all we can do is trust.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we've had similar discussions about this in the past, and it is my own opinion, but I think when it comes to rentals, it's a little bit easier, a little simpler, since this is likely something that would be within the control of the property owner and how the leases are written. So I'm sure that they're going to be strict when it comes to how many vehicles are permitted for each one of these under a lease, but parking is always a concern, so it's worth asking. So, any other questions before we consider the two motions? If not, someone like to make a motion? Councillor Schwab.
I'll move that council give first reading to bylaw 1307.24 to redistrict 4409 South Street to direct control district number 5 as presented.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? All in favor? That is unanimous. This second motion, Deputy Mayor Sands.
I'll move that a public hearing date be set for August 27th, 2024 at 7 p.m. in council chambers.
Thank you. Debate or discussion? All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to 6.3, the request for decision on the Urban Hens pilot program 1-year check-in.
Thank you, Mayor Hoover. Going to change speed here. So the Urban Hen matter did come up earlier this year. We had a delegation speak to council requesting that we revisit this. There was a survey done in 2019 that showed the community was pretty divided. So administration went out, did the survey. We noticed that, or the results of that were that the majority of residents of Blackfalds were in favor of trying this pilot program out. So we figured we'd do a 1-year touch base with council to let you know how it goes, and also a recommendation to move into some public engagement so that we're prepared for when that bylaw does expire in July next year. The temporary urban hen bylaw 128623 received third reading at the July 11th council meeting of last year. And that allows residents to apply to have up to 4 hens on their residential property on a trial basis. The highlights of the temporary bylaw is that the pilot program is only effective for 2 years, and licenses are only valid for 1 year, and they have to come back and fully reapply for that year. The annual application fees are $70 and not prorated. There's a complete prohibition on roosters. The maximum coop size and minimum coop area per hen is consistent with our municipalities that we've researched. We built in some appeal provisions to allow applicants to appeal if they don't feel the decision was fair. Provisions to ensure that the hen's basic health and well-being are looked after, and a prohibition on selling eggs or meat, slaughtering hens on the property, and keeping hens in anything other than a coop, and municipal enforcement mechanisms and general penalties for contravening the bylaw have been built in. Now that, we did take this forward at the July 15th Standing Committee of Council meeting, where the following motion was passed unanimously. That the Standing Committee of Council recommends to Council to direct administration to conduct public engagement pertaining to the Urban Hen pilot program and report the findings back to Council for consideration. So I have a bit of an update with the number of valid licenses we have. We currently have 3 valid urban hen licenses and 2 up for renewal. Administration is currently working with one individual who is actively renewing their license. They've just had some extenuating circumstances in life that just required a couple of days grace on that. So they've come in and applied as of today. And we are following up with the other individual who we sent a renewal notice to in late June and we haven't heard from. So we're on that. So as of right now, we have 3 valid ones, likely 4 as of tomorrow once we're able to process that. When we issue a license, we do receive they receive a cover letter soliciting comments. To date, I haven't received any pertaining to this program because we wanted to hear from the people who are actually participating in it. So we will reach out to them as well as part of this survey if that resolution is passed by council. And the copy, I've also provided a copy of the backside of the urban hen license. We're doing everything we can to help people comply with this. So all of the terms and conditions are reiterated on the back of the license. And we've really only received 2 emails about the program since its inception, and both pertain to possibly requiring training. So when Standing Committee saw this, there was a request to have the animal farm care information posted under urban hen licenses. That request was made, and I checked earlier today and it wasn't there. So we'll make sure that that gets up fairly soon, because I think that's important information to have there. So we sent out renewal letters on June 26th, advising everyone that they do need to reapply. As I've said, we've had 4 of those now, and we've also once again solicited comments on that program and how it's going, and hopefully we do hear something from them. So because we want to avoid that gap, we are dealing with live animals here. We know that the bylaw does expire, I believe, on July 11th, 2025. We'd like to get going on that public engagement early so that if this is a program council wants to continue with, we have a bylaw ready to go and is fully in effect by that date. So what we're proposing that we start a public engagement program, thinking just a simple survey. I think that worked really well before, and we'd start that in fall or winter of this year. And then we will share those results at a future council meeting along with any proposed amendments stemming from the engagement process. So the recommendation before council is that council directs administration to conduct public engagement pertaining to the Urban Hens pilot program and report the findings back to council for consideration. Thank you.
Questions, comments? So you mentioned that this will likely be done in the form of a survey. Will we have questions that we pose, or are we just going to send out a generalized question seeking feedback? If we are going to be asking questions, do we have any thoughts on what those would be?
I think it would be a mix of both open and closed questions. We'd obviously ask if there's any changes, like we'd ask whether or not you're a current license holder or not, or a neighbor too, and see what their experiences are. Ask them if it's going well, if there's any if they think any changes should be made, that kind of thing. We haven't really put a lot of thought into what that survey looks like right now, because we're just in the renewals right now.
Right. Wanted to know whether you were going to be able to do that. Council's approval. So, Deputy Mayor Sands.
I just wanted to say, give you a compliment on the license and how you've laid out the terms and conditions on those. So kind of cuts out a little bit more of the gray area that people might have, but I think it's good. And I do think that the public engagement is a great idea. However that looks, just because, like you said, we're dealing with live animals, and we don't want that we don't want to have that problem when that bylaw comes up and we're dealing with live animals.
Yep.
So yeah, great idea.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And I'll share that compliment with our colleagues in marketing and communications. They were very helpful with that license.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Councillor Schwab?
Through the chair to manager Teckle, I was wondering if the survey could be available for the Community Info Expo on September 11th. Just then we have more to talk about with our residents when we're out and about that night. So if there's a way that you guys can have it ready by then, that would be great.
Through the chair, I see no reason. This will be a fairly simple survey, and yeah, September 11th. Okay.
Almost seems like putting it off, but I now that you mentioned that, that's a great opportunity to have that conversation. Thank you. So if there's no other questions, we do have the motion to consider. Councillor Pell.
Thank you. I move council directs administration to conduct public engagement pertaining to the Urban Hens pilot program and report the findings back to council for consideration.
Thank you. Debate or discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously.
Thank you.
Moving on to 6.4, quarterly financial reports for the period ending June 30th, 2024. Angie Boussay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So the quarterly reports are available in the 4 appendices attached. The operating revenues recognized for this period are 12.95 million, which is 51% of the budgeted revenues, on track for the quarter. Excuse me. The operating expenditures are 10.13 million, which is 44.66% of the budget. The town is currently operating in a surplus position of 2.83 million before transfers to reserves, which are budgeted to be 2.38 million in 2024. So this favorable variance of 450,000 is mostly due to seasonal nature of the operations, and most of the surplus will be absorbed in future activities as they occur. Environmental services revenue year to date is 4.11 million. 49% of the budget, and the expenses for the year are 3.32 million, 44.6% of the budget, creating a surplus of 792,000. And this surplus at the end of the year is transferred to the utility reserve to support utility maintenance projects. Appendix B is the divisional variance analysis to compare revenues and expenses, surpluses and deficits to the annual budget. Many of the department activities are lower than the average benchmark. This is because the expenses are affected by seasonal activities, and with the contracts coming through in the summer and Q3, we'll start to see more of that. Additionally, there's a lot of lower staffing costs due to some vacancies and leaves of absence. So if you refer to Appendix B for more details in each division, just to highlight though, the general revenue is higher as a result of we're still experiencing strong investment returns with the higher interest rates. Development services also has very strong revenue throughout this quarter. This relates to higher building development, plumbing and gas, and electrical permit fees. And some of the operating expenses to note that protective services expenses are lower than the KDIV projection, and this is as a result of the adjustments for equipment, training, unit operations and maintenance, fleet fit up, and extra duty pay. We'll be back on track for the KDIV's Q2. We've received their estimates and we'll be back to the budget amounts. Infrastructure services expenses are also lower as, again, we have seasonal activities and projects that are yet to be fully underway. So currently the town of Blackfalds operations are on track for 2024. Capital projects is under Appendix C. Each of the capital projects are included in this report. It shows the prior year approvals, funds remaining, additional approved amounts throughout the year, and amounts spent to date, and the amounts of funds remaining, along with a simple project update. New projects that have commenced include Phase 2 of the transfer site upgrades, Leung Road Phase 2, and the football field. Projects that have been completed this year include Womax Road and Greg Street realignment, Duncan Avenue and Leung Phase 1, the wheel loader, side-by-side, public works truck, Park Zero turn mower, plotter, T11 motor replacement, and CSD van and columbarium. So the town capital budget progress is closely monitored by administration. Any adjustments, whether it's modifications in scope or spending, are items that would be brought back to council for approval and guidance. And then the last report is the council expenditure report in Appendix D. Being the second quarter of the fiscal year, the expectation would be for the expenses to be approximately 50% of the budget. All elected officials' honorariums are on track for the year. So that brings all the reports that we have for the quarterly end. I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding these reports if council has any.
I see none. Thank you.
All right. Then I'm looking for a motion to accept these as information.
Thank you. Councillor Coulter.
I move that council accepts the operating statement and variance report for the period ending June 30th, 2024 for information.
Thank you. Debate or discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Sands.
I'll move the council accept the capital project report for the period ending June 30th, 2024 as information.
Thank you. Debate or discussion? It's okay. I didn't get eye contact. I'm assuming you're waiting for the next one. All in favor? Thank you. That's unanimous. And Councillor Schwab.
I'll move that council accept the council expenditure report for the period ending June 30th, 2024 as information.
Thank you. Debate, discussion? All in favor? That is also unanimous. Thank you. Moving on to item 6.5, request of a decision, the community initiatives grant.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship and Council. We received a community initiatives grant application from the Central Alberta Pride Society on July 2nd. The application is intended to offset costs related to hosting a roller disco event in Arena 2, which I think they've done that for the last 3 years, at the Eagle Builder Center on August 13th, 2024 from 7 to 9 p.m. And costs include arena rental fees, a DJ and lights for $1,500, and roller skate rentals and instructors for $500. And currently we have $2,096 remaining in the budget, so this would bring us down to $96 remaining if we have this approved tonight.
Thank you. Questions, comments from council?
Just a question. We had the Optimist Club come and we postponed their grant. So how does that work? So they don't get anything?
I think we were just going to continue as is, if I remember correctly, but I could be wrong, but I didn't think we were going to earmark it or leave it available. I thought we were just going to let groups apply.
Okay. I assume that we're waiting until they found a suitable location for that.
And just to be clear, that's the signage,
Yeah, that was the
Yeah, that
signage for
last-
the
right?
disc
Yeah.
golf course.
All right.
It was a motion 20224 to postpone.
All right. Yeah. We had that discussion for sure about potentially, but I don't think that the motion included setting that funds aside for that. Now, I wonder would that potentially be something that could be looked at as a capital expense for the town, or is that project fully community initiatives driven?
Yeah, we have no budget money currently for that project.
So if they do approach us, then we would either have to defer them to next year.
Right.
And that said, I mean, that entire project has been essentially, sorry? Yeah, I was going to say shelved somewhat. I don't know that that's the right term to say, because we've had some open discussions about it, but I think that that we're still hoping as a council to have a little more information come back before we're necessarily prepared to make a motion on that. So, Councillor Pell.
Oh, thanks.
I think Councillor Spot was first.
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay.
I was just going to say, I see that Danielle had the previous motion up here on our screens, and it just stated that we would put their grant application on hold until a location was finalized.
Councillor Spot.
I was just wondering, do we know how many participants have participated in the past at this event?
I don't know that offhand, but I could get that information, but it wouldn't help us probably tonight.
No, it'd just be nice if we're going to be giving organizations money, just knowing how many people are participating and what it's all going towards. The application's great, but it'd just be nice to follow up with numbers.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you. Just a comment to Councillor Spot, which we should be we should be receiving a report after their event. So hopefully that information would be included, but perhaps that is information that we could specifically ask for. And then I do also have one question through the chair for Director Crackwood, because I don't recall offhand what they received for grant funding last year. Was it $2,000?
I also don't have that in front of me, but I can find that out.
Okay.
Yeah,
you.
probably really quickly.
Yep, no problem. I couldn't remember if it was $1,000 or $2,000.
It was $2,500.
So in terms of this application, I mean, I'm in support of this. I think since this is something that's been held in our community, it's clearly popular enough that they want to bring it back. And putting aside the idea of the Optimist Club and the disc golf signage, when I envision and I look at what I think are good uses for this grant, it's activities, it's events, and I think typically that's what we've provided this grant for. I was a little surprised when the signage was considered for this. To me, that's kind of a capital expense. When we get something like I see a disc golf course as a sort of a facility for the community, and signage typically has been the town's responsibility. So I would support, if that came back to me as a capital adjustment, I would probably support it more, rather than taking away funds for an event like this that's popular with the community. I didn't attend it, but it sounds like a lot of fun, and I bet a lot of people enjoy this. And I'm in support of this. That not to say, and I'm not saying that because I'm not in support of the signage, but that was a very valid point to bring up. Councillor Dennis.
So on these applications, is it first come, first serve?
Yeah. So we would bring them forward to typically the rec board first, and then on to council.
Okay, so we postponed the Optimist one. We didn't really decline on it. I just think that they've done such a contribution to this community that I kind of stand behind that funding that we kind of allotted, because they could come back next week with their a new plan, and we said we'd postpone it until then, and then where are we going to get this money from is my concern.
Thank you. Let's see. Councillor Schwab.
If I recall, though, did we not have discussions with a date for next year with applications for a deadline?
Yes.
So next year it'll alleviate this problem, but this year it won't. And the ones that are applying later in the year, I really hope that we give them the information for next year, that there is a deadline, because I would hate to you decline people who've approached us in the past and not give them the funds either. So.
Deputy Mayor Sands.
I agree with Councillor Dennis. I'm just wondering, we postponed, say, their application. However, we did not earmark that money for them at that time. So, and I agree with Mayor Hoover with what he's saying regarding signage and that type of thing. If it's going to be if it's going to be something that's in the community hereafter, I believe the town should look after some of that as well. But yeah, I'm in favor of this initiative as well. I know they've done well in the past here, and they check all the boxes as well for what the community initiatives grant needs or requires. It's one of those things where we always want to support these type of events coming in, because they do bring people in. I just would, I know we put the last initiative on hold, but we didn't earmark that money for that. So being as this is coming to us, it was brought to us July 2nd, the application, and their initiative, their get together is going to be on August 13th. So we've kind of got to look at that as well. So I'm in favor of this evening.
Councillor Appel.
Thank you. I will be voting in favor of this event. I feel that the intent behind this grant should be to support projects, events, and initiatives that are, let's say, shovel ready. Obviously, we're not digging a hole in the ground, but you know what I mean? I don't know that we should be earmarking grant funding for something that may or may not be coming forward this year. I think it goes against the idea of having the grant available for groups that are ready to go. Yeah.
Councillor Coulter.
I just sort of want to see if anybody else remembers on when we did postpone that, we did have a discussion in regards to what would happen if somebody else came forward. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure we said that we would find the money somewhere if they were able to find a spot this year.
Now, I don't remember the wording, but I mean, the sentiment that you're saying, whether or not it was discussed or not, is how I feel about this. I don't think that better wording is say, I think that we can do both of these things. And I think, especially since the signage was related to the disc golf, when that delegation came, and I know that I was attending virtually, so I hope I didn't miss anything in that discussion. But my position at that time is I'm not entirely convinced that project's ready to go, in my opinion. And I don't think council has made any decisions on that. I would like to see more consideration of where that will be located, whether or not it's appropriate that we wait for something on the east side. That's secondary to me. The sentiment I feel that a couple of other members of council have shared tonight is that this event that we're looking at for this grant is worthy. It's a good event, something that is unfortunately not likely to move forward unless we support it. But I think the signage for this disc golf course can be addressed. I think we can do both. What I don't want to risk is a good event in the community that this grant is, in my mind, therefore to be impacted negatively, because we haven't quite vetted the other application. So
Okay.
that in front, I don't know that we necessarily, and again, a lot of words to say that I don't know that we necessarily fully discussed this well, but in my mind, I would support, this and then consider that finding a way to do that later. In my mind, that's my memory. But looking at this today, I'm in support of it today.
Can I finish my thought?
Yes, you can, sir.
I was going to say I'm in support of this, but I was recalling the discussion we had when we postponed that, because we did discuss in regards to what if somebody else came forward. So that was my thought. Thank you.
Thank you. You posed a question for anybody if they recalled it, and that was my recollection. Anybody else, Deputy Mayor, Councilor Dennis?
I support this group too, but I just feel that when I decided to vote for that postponing, that we were postponing that money for them. And that's my thought when I voted on that. So I will be voting against this.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I think this is one of those things that we can look back and go, maybe we should have been more clear in the motion, perhaps. But that said, this is in front of us. Councillor Pell.
Thank you. Yeah, as I was the mover of the previous motion that we're discussing, we had not discussed earmarking or holding the funds at all. So that is something that could have come forward. But it wasn't discussed. It also wasn't part of the motion.
Thank you. That's some good discussion. I think that, that overall this allocating this small amount of money is a challenge for sure. We would love to support many, many more things. Councillor Schwab.
Well, since this event has been in our community for the last 3 years, I'm ready to move the administrative recommendation that council provides funding for the Central Alberta Pride Society from the Community Initiatives Grant in the amount of $2,000.
Thank you. Debate or discussion? All in favor? Opposed? And that is just carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to 6.7, request for decision on meeting time change.
No.
Alberta Partnership Grant first. Sorry.
Thanks. So council, you'll remember at the February 12th, 2024, at the February 12th, 2024 regular meeting of council, Lacombe City Council unanimously agreed to refer the matter of a tri-party Alberta Community Partnership Grant application for a regional recreation facility to the IDP IDS ICF committee for the city of Lacombe County and the town of Blackfalds. A letter did come forward to council, and council did discuss this. And the recommendation at that time was that until the city or until the Lacombe County had further discussion on it, that council would defer the discussion. So we do know that now the Lacombe County has passed a resolution that council refer the matter of a tri-party Alberta Community Partnership Grant to the Lacombe, Blackfalds, and Lacombe County Intermunicipal Development Plan and Intermunicipal Collaborative Framework. As per the February 27th resolution that was passed by the town of Blackfalds, the matter is now coming before council again. And the administrative request is that council refer the matter of a tri-party Alberta Community Partnership Grant to the Lacombe, Blackfalds, and Lacombe County Intermunicipal Development Plan and Intermunicipal Collaborative Framework Committee for discussion. It's a mouthful. Any questions?
Councillor Pell.
Thank you. Through the chair to CAO Isaac, so just one question. So typically when our intermunicipal development plan and collaborative framework committees meet, we don't meet with the city of Lacombe. So my question would just be, would we try to plan this meeting if this motion were to go forward on an evening that we already are meeting with Lacombe County and just plan like an extended meeting, or would we probably be doing it on another night?
We do know that we are going to have a meeting with Lacombe County in September because we do have some ICF discussions. We also have had a request from the city of Lacombe to meet. So we will try to accommodate that, but it might be more difficult to do it on top of, say, our ICF meeting, IDP, because I know that we've got at least 3 or 4 matters that we want to be discussing. So I think that it would be best that it's just a separate meeting specifically for this discussion, because it might be a pretty lengthy discussion.
Thank you. I do know that this is in line with some discussions that the town of Blackfalds and Lacombe County have had in terms of collaboration. And as Isaac mentioned, the city of Lacombe has been trying to align a time. I think we've tossed around some dates that just haven't aligned for a few months now. So this will ultimately potentially align, hopefully align. A little more difficult when you're adding another party, 3 parties. But again, this is aligned with discussions we've already had with the county. I know that they've expressed a desire to work with their neighbors ahead of time, long ahead of time when it comes to recreational planning in particular. And I think this would probably serve us all well just to take advantage of this grant that will hopefully help provide a framework for how we might do that moving forward. So I'm certainly in support of doing this. Is this something maybe we break into 2 motions, though, or is this, that we're approving moving forward with this grant initiative, or is it all contingent on meeting and discussing that? I think every council, if we support this tonight, will have approved it. The city of Lacombe has approved applying for this grant. The county has approved it. I don't know, is it worthwhile just showing our support for applying for the grant and then having a separate motion for setting a meeting?
No, so I guess this was an identical motion to what Lacombe County. So Lacombe County has said, they're not saying we're going to apply, they're saying we're going to have a discussion about it. So, and that's what I'm recommending that happen here, is that council say, yes, let's agree to meet with the other 2 parties and then have that discussion. And then what would flowing out of that, then each party would then go back to their respective councils. And if the decision was made or the recommendation coming out of those committees was that they apply for the grant, then your Blackfalds ICF committee would come back and recommend that back to council, and then council would then make a subsequent resolution to that.
Do we know if there's a deadline for this grant?
I believe it is, I think it's like in November.
I think that would be key to know that if we're going to have difficulty aligning with that, with 3 municipalities before then. I know that what we're trying to do is align with the motion that Lacombe County made. I'm just wondering if we made a motion to support that, and I'm fairly certain that the city of Lacombe has that, maybe that if we're not able to meet between now and then, if Lacombe County wants to make a motion, that we can at least apply. But that's not the language here. I'm just questioning whether or not we're under the gun to try and.
Yeah, I don't believe so, because I think it does have, I think there's an intake. I think we have up until I believe it's like October, November, if I remember correctly. Okay. So I think, if we're able to we'll try to aim to have this meeting in early September.
Right.
And so then it still gives time to apply for that grant. And the one thing that the city of Lacombe, they have agreed that they would be the partner that would put the work into the grant application. They have said that they would do that. So.
Right. Okay, thank you. So, I mean, I'm in support of this. I just want to be mindful that we we have essentially 8 weeks.
Yeah,
before
and we
this
could
comes
always
up.
have a special meeting if
Right.
required too, so. if
Councillor
that's-
Schwab.
I'm in support of the grant, but I'm just wondering, like, we have never had a discussion with our residents about a possibility of even doing something like this. So say we get the grant, but our residents aren't interested in us being a part of this try, then what do we do? Because we've never had that discussion, and I would hate for it to, not be accepted later on. And all this extra work's put out for nothing.
Yeah, so, yeah, it's a comment for sure that it doesn't mean that just going out and doing the study doesn't mean that you're bound to do that work, right?
Yeah.
This is only providing an option that this could be a feasible way to be able to build additional facilities that would support those 3 areas. So there's nothing that binds you by having that study done. And the funding, there's no funding coming out of the municipality's pocket, right?
Councillor Pell.
Thank you. And through the chair to CEO Isaac, if this were to go through and if we were to get the grant, well, that sort of public engagement would all happen during the creation of that feasibility study.
That's
So
correct.
there's definitely there's no shovels hitting the ground if we approve this today.
Yeah.
But it's just allowing us to have those conversations, because whether or not we get, up to $200,000 to create the feasibility study will make a big difference as to whether or not that's going to happen.
Councillor Dennis.
Yeah, I think it's definitely with discussion, because we've discussed it before. If it's not in a good location, our residents aren't going to be that easy for using the places too. If they build it just outside of Lacombe, what benefit it's going to be to our town? Is the way I look at it. But discussion's great.
Yeah, I agree. I think we, as a council discussing this, know that there's not a big facility in the near future that we're chasing. This is not something that we've had a lot of investments recently. This is setting up that framework and being prepared. Now, that said as well, we know that the way that funding is working from our other partners, our other levels of government, more and more pressure, more and more expectation is that we're collaborating in order to get this funding. I think there's very few major projects that'll get funding from provincial governments, certainly that are from one individual municipality. If we're not collaborating with our neighbors, we probably don't have much of a chance. So the sooner that we have a framework, and then look how long it takes for the IDP ICF process when we're mandated, let alone when this is voluntary. So the sooner we can have these discussions and set up our next term, whoever that council will be, with hopefully some framework and some, I will say, free grants. They're not free per se, but some funding that provides a better way to deal with that in the future. So I'm definitely in support of having that meeting, mindful of the fact that we need to do this in 8 weeks. So start looking at our calendars. That said, we do have a motion. Someone willing to make that motion? Deputy Mayor Sands.
I'll move the council refer the matter to a tri-party Alberta Community Partnership grant to the Lacombe, Blackfalds, and Lacombe County Intermunicipal Development Plan and the Intermunicipal Collaborative Framework Committee for discussion.
Thank you. Debate or discussion? All in favor? And that is unanimous. Now, moving on to 6.7, request for decision on meeting time change.
So I'll do it since I'm up here. So this item here is for meeting time change, which is for the budget assumptions meeting that we will be discussing at a standing committee of council. So council had previously passed a resolution to have a standing committee on August 6th, and that meeting would be at 7. But what we are now proposing is that it start at 6 so that we've got ample time to discuss. So the recommendation is that council amend resolution 20524 to read that council schedule a standing committee of council meeting for August 6, 2024 at 6 p.m. for budget discussions and direct administration to post notice of the meeting.
Thank you. Questions, comments? I think there's been communications to everyone on this, that everybody so far is available for this. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Schwab?
I'll move that council amend resolution 205/24 to read that council schedule standing committee of council meeting for August 6, 2024 at 6 p.m. for budget discussions and direct administration to post notice of the meeting.
Thank you. Greater discussion on the motion? All in favor? That is unanimous. We do have one notice of motion, item 7.1, the midterm strategic plan. Addition to action items. Councillor.
Thank you. At the June 17th, 2024 Standing Committee of Council meeting, CAO Isaac provided an update on the action items from the 2024 to 2026 midterm strategic plan. Lack of registry services and efficient services provided by Canada Post are areas that the town of Blackfalds should focus on to increase services to the town's residents. Based on the above, I request that the following motion be considered at the August 13th, 2024 regular meeting of council. That council consider adding advocacy for an Alberta registry service and increased services by Canada Post to action items under strategic priority 1, community life, under the focus area of connect residents to services and services for residents. Services to residents.
Thank you. Questions, comments? It will be interesting to have the registry conversation again, since that was such a, we came so close and didn't quite get there. So it'll be nice to have that conversation again. It is a service that, that our community can certainly benefit from. Seeing none, that will come in August. There's no confidential items. So with that, I will adjourn at 8:02. Thank you so much.
Right.